Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Build Beyond with Tecton podcast. Today it's just Bert and I. We're gonna talk about something that we have differences of opinions on. It is spirituality and God. There will be a little bit of religion talk in this, but it's mostly the personal spirituality and our relationship or our non-relationship with God, superior being, whatever we want to call it. I'd like to start out on the very subject or the very first act of acknowledging a God, prayer. What is it, Bert? What is it that you believe that prayer is necessary on getting close to God or getting an answer and all that? And why is prayer successful?
Well, I think first off, so everyone has the understanding, or make sure everybody knows, we both grew up in the same spiritual religion. And so our differences of opinion on the subject really are our interpretations, and then the new information we've gleaned since exiting that religion. And so it'll be interesting to have this conversation. But to answer your question about prayer, like what does the act of prayer do for me? Is that essentially the question?
Yeah, let's just start out. The first act of acknowledging God, in a sense, is prayer. Acknowledging Him, giving Him credit, asking Him for guidance or whatever the case is.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I feel like the act of prayer and what it's done for me throughout my life, and the reason that I continue to maintain that relationship with God, and through prayer, and even sometimes prayer out loud and prayer just in my heart and mind, is because I feel like that it is very important for our intelligences to acknowledge our gifts that we have, to have gratitude for the things that we have, for our families, for just even our temporal things here on the earth, money, trucks. Like, I thank Him for all of those things, because what it does for me is in acts of humility that acknowledges a greater power and where those gifts come from.
So I'm gonna just, my rebuttal's gonna come from a little story about, I would honestly say it's one of the last times I prayed out loud in fervency. I was on the verge of getting out of the religion.
But when you say fervency, explain to the audience what fervency means to
really
you.
I mean, in my
intent
current
with faith.
Yeah, I was really focused on getting an answer, getting a result off of this prayer. And I was trying to get with my current fiance wife, and it was just struggling. We weren't getting it out. Like, we were both kind of still in the religion. We just weren't focusing on trying to be honest with ourselves and with each other about what we intended. So I knelt down, did a fervent prayer. Well, I mean, it comes to light that didn't work until I just went and been honest with Tammy. Like, I didn't get an answer to that prayer until I just went and been honest with Tammy about what I wanted about the relationship I wanted.
That's where principles come into play here, because first to your own self be true.
Right.
Like, what do you want? Because I don't think that God sends us here, as it were, or we're not here just to do.
But so many people give God the credit for what we actively go and do. And my argument is, if you give someone else a credit for something that you did, how are you going to repeat that? Because once you give yourself your credit, it means that you know what you did right or what you did wrong, and you can repeat it. But you give that credit away, then how can you repeat it? Then you just get lucky again and give the credit back to God.
I don't think that thanking him for the gifts that you have is giving him the credit to where you can't be proud of yourself. But acknowledging his hand in that achievement will only, and I believe this, that it will only make it go even better next time. Like you will be able to achieve more the next time just by the humility and act of gratitude.
I like to say that a prayer circle is just a form of meditation.
Well, I depending on how you feel when you meditate, I know there's a difference between sitting there and trying to relax and actually seeking
meditation
wisdom and guidance.
Meditation in the form that I interpret it is focus on a subject, focus on yourself, your positives, your negatives. It's not just sitting there and relaxing and letting your body do woo-ha. No, meditation is prayer, but more focused on giving yourself the credit or acknowledging you did something wrong. Giving yourself for credit for the positives and adjusting when you did it wrong. That's what happens when I meditate and have my times alone, and most of the times it's driving, is meditating. And going back, it's when I came out to this is when we spoke in previous podcasts about I was around age 22 when I really started to intentionally every day, every night, thinking about the day's results and figuring out why they happened, what were wrong with them, etc. And what I came out with that is everything that I did, positive or negative, was a direct result of my own actions, and those actions are based on a couple of things: your mental state, the information you have, and the experience in said subject.
But if you
I never was able to tie it back to some imaginal being.
Okay, so you have never experienced anything in your life where you felt like that was a miracle, or you felt like you were being, blessed or watched over at a given time, like maybe even a near-death experience or anything. And this isn't to it's really to set up more of a question that I have for you. Like, what is faith to you? Is that just a
belief that I will make the right actions to get the outcome I'm looking for?
Yeah, so it's what gets us out of bed in the morning. The idea that we can do something. You can do that. So you don't really have faith. So that's not a good example. So let me think of something else. Faith, the moving cause of all action. So faith is what made you start Tecton, the business Tecton. You had faith in yourself that you would do that. So if faith is something that helps you put into action things that you're able to accomplish or go and do that you didn't before know you could do, but faith was what made you get started, then how do you keep going when you don't know those things? You don't blame yourself if you don't know the unknowns, but you have faith. Like, you didn't know all the experiences you was going to have to go through when you started the business, but each time one of them come up, you found a way to go forward and keep going.
Well, I think I understand your question, and honestly, how did I have, to reiterate the question, how did I have faith to honestly have the confidence?
It's
and
more what faith is, though. The question is more, what is
my definition of faith?
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. It's faith is trusting. For instance, I'm going to go back to when I finally came out of the bullshitting myself when I was trying to get with Tammy. We hadn't been talking to each other about romance or being together as a couple. We were really shading around at using the business. She was doing my books and all that, and I was doing all that, and we really find times to talk to each other about business or health or whatever. And finally, after I realized that God wasn't going to do it for me, I knew I needed to step forward and just have the blunt question. And at that time, my blunt question was, if I asked you to come on a trip with me, would you come? Yeah, obviously the answer was yes. But how did I have the faith, and what was what helped me do that? Was as simple as trusting that the odds were in my favor. Trusting that she was in there. So faith is the trust that the odds are in our favor.
Okay, I could accept that, but it's still, the meaning of faith is just basically it caused you to take action. Like you having faith that, or you saying that the odds were in your favor, you took action and asked. So I had a similar, I was leaving the religion, and I would like to say, like, I always say this, we live life between our ears.
Yeah.
The knowledge we have in our head
absolutely
is how we interpret and comprehend and then act upon our faith.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's, whatever type of faith or anything. When I left, then I actually used prayer. I mean, I had the balls to use prayer to help.
Same here.
I said in this prayer, I says, at the time I truly believed I was, sacrificing a life after what they called a celestial glory.
Yeah, the life after.
And you can this is a whole nother subject.
Yeah,
I'm gonna finish
that's
this
gonna be
point
a
because
fun
I
one.
can see
Yeah,
that
go ahead.
You want to talk about that. I had the balls to pray to my Heavenly Father that if this would work out, that and it was His will that I would, this girl I was going to meet, and that it would work out, and I wanted a family, and I wanted to raise a family and fulfill my purpose of life, is how I seen it.
Yeah.
And here I am, 5 kids and 16, soon to be 17 years here in another couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Later.
No, I just for you listeners, I don't know if you're LDS or anything really. Imagine being taught all your life that God is in control of every aspect, and at the same time, the religion you're part of is God's will.
Yeah, but I think that the religion we was part of had the falsehood that they replaced God with a man. Essentially, that's what it turned out to be. But Warren Jeffs.
Let me get to my point about actually why you say you had the balls.
Because I was actually going to explain to the audience why I said I had the balls.
Yeah,
and it was, you can finish explaining it, or
I'll finish the point.
Quick.
So, in that religion and in the LDS church, if I'm honest, now that I know a lot about the LDS church, And I have a lot of great friends, and it's nothing against people in general. God is everything, and the church that you belong to, LDS or FLDS, then that is the true one and only church that God has in store.
Or Catholics or Protestant, like they all think
and
that
so
they have
imagine
the
asking
bull by the balls.
Imagine asking the same person, which is God in this case, that we all been taught it. He's already told us this is the only way to salvation, right? Imagine asking him for something different, to help us in something different, and that we truly believe that'll be better for us. That's why it's the balls. Is you're essentially asking you're essentially asking your best friend that is also your employer to support you to become your competition. That takes balls.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd have to dissect that. I don't know. I think you took that analogy a little, because I mean, you're not
Same
going
principle.
to become in competition with the religion
because
just by being
I looked at
independent.
you. Okay, when I decided that I could be real outside of the religion, was when I met you, and you were so damn spiritual and all about God.
Spiritual.
you were. It was like Bert never changed when it came to believing in God and spirituality. So therefore, you were competition to that religion when it came to me. Maybe you only had a couple followers.
See,
but
God
you were still competition.
Prayers. God answered my prayers that others would be enlightened.
Well, but if you take it back, like there was a reason why I wanted to follow your example.
I can see you still need a little praying for, though.
Well, yeah, you can pray all day, but I'm going to put it into action. Anyways, the reason you can call that it was an answer to your prayers. I call it, I had reason to follow my big brother if I found similarities there. That's all. That was the reason I followed you. And you can say it was a matter of prayer. I choose to believe.
So basically what you're saying is when you came out and that very first time you come up and met me and
we
realized
went up to Montana.
You still seen a little sparkle in my eye, and you're like, this ain't a devil.
Oh, I went to our good friend that was with us and says, oh, hell, he still believes in the religion.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Did you thought I did?
Oh, I thought you did. And I don't know so much as think as I thought you did. It's just that it was my way of justifying that you were still a good person and that I could leave the religion and still be a good person.
See, the thing, the whole religious and leaving and going and coming and whatnot and everything, like, if I've learned one thing, it is that we just all individually have a relationship, but mine does stem from what I was taught. But the one thing that I can't deny is the spirit with which prayer comes with for me. Now, I've experienced both. If you mentioned fervency, I like to say it faith, or the belief that your prayer is going to have merit or be answered, or in what way.
Fervency isn't what I use now, but go ahead.
Yeah. I fervently got used where we came from as like some sort of penance type. Yeah,
no,
thing. I could see, especially where that went after I left, how that would leave that taste in your mouth. But the one thing I can't deny is the increase in the feelings of the spirit that I felt as a young child when I would pray or be grateful. That's a big one to me, because if you're grateful for something, you'll never go without. If you are always complaining, you'll never have anything. So gratitude's it's a gift that we all need to actually be happy in life, because money doesn't make us happy. Gratitude will, in my feelings.
Well, gratitude for for me, money will make me happy, and it has made me happy. I am so much more
And
happy.
Well, then maybe we'll roll over to after you.
Well, no, I'm going to tell you why money has made me happy.
Oh, okay.
I can help others out when I have money.
That's a good one.
And people look up to you when you have money. So then your ability to help them out increases because they have more confidence in you because you have something that they would like.
It's an interesting thought process.
It's not like my emphasis and desire for a lot of money and to become a billionaire with jets and everything has nothing to do with personal satisfaction. It has everything to do with helping others. I have never been happier than when I'm actually helping others.
Well, I get a lot of satisfaction out of helping others as well, but I've never really thought, helping them with money was how people like helping them with.
Well, you don't give money away unless it's a charity that is actually worth a damn. And by the way, I'd be hard pressed to donate to any charity but my own. Unless I was really good friends and knew where that money was going. Yeah. I am not.
You've seen too much.
I am not an advocate for charities unless you know everything about that charity.
Yeah.
And making that very clear. The idea that money doesn't do you or makes you worse is just wrong. And the idea that money doesn't buy happiness is wrong. And if you're a bad person, more money will buy your happiness. If you have happy and being bad, more money will buy more happiness. If you're a person like I believe I am, that my happiness is helping others, having more money buys my happiness.
Is there a difference to you between gratification or satisfaction and happiness?
One's masturbating and one's...
I know you're just joking.
The gratification. That's just tied to masturbating too much. Sorry, guys. My mind. So ask your question again.
I said, is there a difference to you between gratification or satisfaction and happiness? Like, is there?
No.
Because I see happiness as like more of a
fulfillment.
Yeah, more like you feel good not only about yourself, but you feel good about how you make other people feel is kind of my happiness. Like I guess happiness in life, like I love going on the boat. I love golfing. I love.
Do you like doing that by yourself?
I don't like going on the boat by myself. The only way I like to do it is with my wife or.
And I would say even golfing, you don't like doing it by yourself.
Not as much, but I can enjoy golfing myself more than I could boating myself. Or even fishing myself.
I would say that's because there are aspects of golf that are very personal, and that's your that can be used as personal time. But you're out on the boat.
Self-improvement. You're not really doing anything.
You're out on the boat. You don't have that same aspect. Now I'm gonna be a little descriptive here. Do you? And this question doesn't need answered. But have you ever fucked when your lady was not satisfied? If that happens, that's self-gratification. That's self-happiness. I don't enjoy that.
But that's not. Gratification, I don't think is happiness. Because how did you feel after?
Well, no.
If
gratification is just it's synonyms to grateful, isn't not? You're grateful for what happened to you. You're happy about. You're grateful for. So it's gratification. I'm simply saying there's a difference between gratification and self-gratification.
Yeah.
Nobody likes fucking a doll. you never feel good afterwards.
A doll?
Well, it's my
Maybe we
word of
should-
saying only one of the your wife is not satisfied in sex. That is my reference to fucking a doll. It is not fun for me when I don't do what I need to do for her.
Well, I would say that's same for me, like, but I've never felt like we weren't both gratified. So I haven't in that area an expertise. But I would get off that subject in gratification, and because there is a difference in self-gratification and gratification. There's
Absolutely.
a selfish gratification. Like if you're not a good person and you feel good about having self-gratification while others around you suffer or aren't gratified, I don't
enjoy that.
Yeah,
I
mean, that's
there's
not,
no like
that ain't gratitude
it's
though,
pa-
and it's completely different than the gratitude I speak of.
well, that's self-gratification. How can you be grateful if you're the only one in the room?
The gratification or gratitude that I'm talking about is the acknowledgement that you have something and that you are fortunate to have it, or that you're fortunate to be here, that you're fortunate to, because other people.
I don't think that there's a person that's truly grateful that you couldn't sell him on the fact that he's grateful because he's happy that other people are enjoying the same thing, whether it be good or bad people.
But that's just an unselfish person.
I think. I mean, who?
Like you want others to be happy too. That's a kind heart, or that's an attribute of God.
I don't understand how you're separating gratitude and gratification from happiness, because if someone's has gratification or
Well, because
whatever,
of the light
grateful,
and the comparison that you put it in, that seemed kind of like a dark gratification.
As far as
I
sex?
want an yeah, because
Yeah,
I don't.
well, that's what
I
I'm
don't
saying.
have gratification if she's not
That's what-
satisfied.
that-
So I feel like you used
Right.
that and made me have to
no,
redefine gratitude, because gratification
No,
and
I was
gratitude are different.
I was defining gratification versus self-gratification in that analogy. I wasn't trying to redefine gratification. I was simply saying, look, there's two things. Like when someone has gratification,
Is there a difference in the definition of these two? I would like to look that
yeah,
up.
self-gratification is when,
Well, no, gratification and gratitude.
No, I don't think there is. I think gratification is the act of feeling grateful.
I think there's a difference.
Gratification is spelt grateful.
Or well, I know it's spelt the same way, but gratification is like you would get gratification out of somebody that did wrong to you, that then karma came and bit them. Like maybe you would feel, well, that's karma. Is that gratification? Like that, but that's not gratitude. That's not what I'm talking about. The acknowledgement that your gifts came from somewhere. The acknowledgement that you yourself, without the help of a superior being, wouldn't have the blessings you have. That's gratitude to me. So that's why I had to get down to the bottom of this, because the gratification and gratitude were not sitting in the same, especially in the.
I would say that there's gratification in the sense of gratification. It is grateful. It is being grateful. It's the act of being grateful. But then there's self-gratification that has nothing to do with being grateful.
Yeah, and that would fall in the category of you're happy at somebody's karma.
Yeah, that's self-gratification, because like, what's the point of being grateful for that?
But there's such a different spirit that comes with that.
Right, and that's why self-gratification, I believe, is wrong. I believe that it stops at that. It stops at that act. Like you can't. You can take being grateful, just like, say, you're just my analogy before, and I'm sorry to be so the taboo talk, but what comes from lovemaking? And lovemaking is actually both parties involved finish. It's the bonding. You remember that together.
Yeah,
there's something beyond lovemaking. There's nothing beyond both not finishing. There's nothing. It stops there. That's self-gratification.
Well, you didn't grow your relationship by
right. So if nothing is proved beyond, I think it's bad gratification.
Well, I agree with that. But it doesn't change the fact that the gratitude and gratification are, I believe, two entirely different. They have different meanings. I'm looking it up. I've got to look it up. We'll see. Keep going.
I'm trying to think what we could do to stay in the subject. I'll tell you what. To be truly grateful in my life and in my career will be when I've helped a lot of young entrepreneurs and old take their companies to businesses. That's when I will be truly happy and full of gratitude. And that'll be great.
But there will just be, like, once you achieve that, then that happiness is going to go. Well, I see what you're saying. You're going to continue to do that, but then that will become bored, and then you will cease to be.
Well, I'll build a business out of that.
Yeah,
I'll build a business out of that's beyond me, and then I'll go to the next step.
Yeah, but you're doing that here. You get gratification out of the growth you see and feel and watch here and make happen here, and then you're already on to the next. Why do you think that once you achieve that next, there's not going to be a next? That's human nature. That's entrepreneurship and human nature.
Yeah,
if they're entrepreneurs. Like,
I think the
growth makes you happy. The goalpost being met, and the next one, and the next one. That's the gratification. But I did find this gratification, the pleasure, especially when gained from the satisfaction of a desire. That's gratification. And it does elude, it's kind of like it eludes and brings the bedroom into it and says the sexual gratification or the act of sex. So now, gratitude oh, wait. I have to erase it all.
Okay, sorry, audience, for the pause. But what I'm going to do while he's looking up that.
A strong feeling of appreciation to someone or something for what the person has done to help you. So I'm grateful to my parents. I'm grateful to, Tecton. I'm grateful. There's a lot of things. Like, now you can define the difference of gratitude and gratification. Like, there is a difference. That's why I had to.
I have something. I'm going to ask AI. I'm asking AI, how does gratitude and gratification correlate?
For me, there's gratification never feels like the Spirit of God, where gratitude to me comes with a feeling of joy and happiness.
In summary, gratitude and gratification. I haven't read this, so I'm totally
start at the top.
In summary, gratitude and gratification are related in that they both involve positive emotions and feelings of appreciation or satisfaction, but they represent different aspects of the human experience.
Yeah.
Cultivating both gratitude and seeking gratification can contribute to a more fulfilling and meaningful life. So I think that I think you win on this one. I think you win on this one.
Well,
I don't
Nate.
think that I don't think there's that direct correlation, like I said. Now, I watched a movie called Interstellar by the star of it was Matthew McConaughey. Okay,
Matthew McConaughey.
Matthew
Yeah.
McConaughey. He's God in that movie.
Oh, he actually plays God in that movie?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
you just love him in that
He's
movie.
my description of God in that movie.
Okay.
Now, if you ever watch the movie, he goes out in outer space and he's trying to save the world. The world's collapsing, and he needs to find some other planet or some other whatever to bring the people there to live. And he goes and they're checking on different worlds and different outer spaces and all that. And they get this one that they have the science on that if they enter that space, then 1 hour will be 17 years on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought that God is living, that's where that movie correlates with the subject of God. The thought that God is living is backed up by that movie.
Well, when I think of God
I was
living,
doing the math, and God is, if he was in that, it's like 800 million years old or whatever.
But doesn't that make sense? Like God's time.
Yeah,
and man's time,
I was
like a little
convinced
bit.
there was a God.
Well, I'm gonna have
and
to
living
watch
God.
the movie. I'm gonna have to watch the movie. But when you say like a living God, I say he's living like the earth is, kind of like the earth is living. But I do believe that.
Well, that's just nature, man.
I do believe that as man is, God once was. So that's where I think we have the biggest separate of opinions.
Yeah.
Is
So
I believe that this life is more of a journey and a pathway towards our intelligences and our existence was before and will be after this life, and that this life is just a stepping stone into our intelligences.
There's no life after this one.
Well,
there's a belief of a life after this one.
Yeah, I have
but there's
faith.
No
I'll rephrase
life after
that.
This one.
I believe or have faith that there is intelligence after this, and that we are in our spiritual state will exist beyond
now
our bodily life.
Now, I do believe there's no life after this. But after I started down that road of arguing that with my friends, with whoever, then the thought occurred to me: why is that analogy, or why is that belief preached? And so, in looking at it, I've come to the conclusion it's preached to add comfort for the dead, for the dying, and for the living. For the living, right? But for the dying, like if you know you're going to live into an existence and help, that's going to comfort you. And so even though I don't believe there's an afterlife, I think that the thought that there is an afterlife is a net positive.
Well, I don't want to make people feel like, well, let me start over. I do not feel like people go through life, their entire life, without giving this a lot of deep thought. Like, what is this life for? Like, at some point in everyone's life, they come to a point in their life, and maybe not everyone's, but everyone I think everyone comes lot of through people. A point in their life where they're like, what is life for? Like, they ask themselves. And I feel like that if you have faith that there is intelligence after life, you'll simply be a better person in life, because you would think, well, whatever my position is going to be there, then I want to make sure that it's not, I don't want to be an evil person.
Then that's given that's giving up your accountability to some imaginary situation.
But it brings this full circle so that we don't, because I don't feel like we will, because we'll never know until we die, right? At least that's how I think. Like, once I die, I'll know if there was life after death, because there's
no way for you to get us the message back to us.
No, there's not, because that wouldn't be fair. Then we wouldn't all have the same experience in fulfilling the purpose of life. We can't. It's just like a baby can't talk. A baby can't talk.
If it's true,
when it comes out of the womb,
because it don't know how to.
Yeah, by design, because it can't. Why would it need? It would come here and explain.
No, we all learn intelligence based off everything we're taught.
On Earth, yes.
So you're talking is earthly intelligence.
I'm talking about existence intelligence. Like, we have an intelligence, as in we are not characters, but our existences before and after life. That's what I would argue. But to get beyond the argument of this, let's talk about the value that thought process brings to humanity.
Yeah, that is the route I want to go.
Since the beginning of time.
Okay, let me ask you this. Have you ever had the experience where, and I have, and I'll tell this story to bring in this experience. So we're doing a big project right down here in St. George, Utah. It's our biggest project of date a couple of years ago. And I there was no way out. I knew I was losing money. There was no option for me to back out. I would have been giving up on my dreams. I knew I was going to lose close to 6 figures on this project. And so I had the mindset of I had no choice but to make it the best possible learning lesson ever.
Mm-hmm.
I had no choice. Now, what if there was an out?
From
making it the best. From making that experience the best possible.
What if there was an out?
Yeah. What if there was an out? Like, someone would come in, swoop in, and cover all the costs free of charge of me. I would have took it.
You wouldn't have learned anything.
Exactly. And that's why I believe the thought of the afterlife is an out to making this life the most perfect possible.
Well, I'm not going to argue that, because that is the value that the faith in God and intelligence before and after life, and this being more of a stepping stone. The idea of that is encompassed with Christianity and the value Christianity has brought to society to keep us animals from becoming just the worst. Like, we would self-implode if we didn't have faith in a superior being.
Well,
we see it going on in the world today. The less and less people believe in God, the more and more wicked the world seems to become. And that's just like what I see going on around.
That's because people when that happens, it's because people stop believing in nature. People don't believe in God because they're afraid of accountability. Now, nature, in my definition of nature, is, I would argue, is the same as your definition in God. My belief in nature will keep me accountable, because I know if I go against nature, I'm going to be burned.
So what is nature then?
Nature is what the Supreme Being built millions and millions of years ago. It's what this earth was based on.
But when I think of nature, I think of the earth, the way it works, like the oceans.
That's what keeps everything accountable.
This subject is like, who created, that's a Christianity belief that God created the earth. The understanding
God's
and
supreme power,
interpretation,
whatever.
God, the interpretation of what creating the earth, like, did he physically do it or did he command it around? I mean, if you read the Bible, then it's more like he said this and it was, and he said this and it was. So what, like, that can't be necessarily true unless he is just nature, like you're saying, is like it's just how it happened, the big boom. Like it naturally, naturally there was a big boom and the earth fell together.
No, I said supreme being. I
And-
said the supreme being built it millions of years ago or however long ago. Now I'm gonna try to create an analogy. I don't know how well this is gonna work, but this is my point about nature. And nature, I believe, has the same power that a lot of people say God has. But it simplifies it and it makes it repeatable. It makes it more self-accountable too. So by nature, your children have perfect confidence in you as parents. It's just the way it is.
What, as little infants?
Yeah, as
little
children.
infants.
What undoes that is going against nature, and I'll tell you how. If you will start to look on the little things that you watch as children lose confidence in you and stop disobeying, it's because you didn't keep your word, or you injured them either mentally or physically somehow.
Yeah.
And those two things, not keeping your word, which is dishonesty, and injuring them either mentally or physically, goes against the nature. And so then what happens? Bad happens. They start to lose confidence, resentment, all that. And that goes for everything.
Well, I agree with the premise of that. I do. But nature is something that naturally happens. God is not something that naturally happens. God is the result of action. So I would argue that God is the result of action and nature is just something that happens.
God is the result of what?
Of action. So he didn't just become...
No, we can do whatever we want, and this world would be a perfect world if everybody would follow nature.
But
follow the rules of nature, which is follow nature, don't hurt anybody, mentally or physically.
So where do you learn this?
I came up with it. Because I'm trying to find anything repeatable.
You came up with don't hurt anybody. Well, let me not make a man offender for his word. But I feel like you are trying to just naturalize God when that's demeaning to what he is to me.
Well, I know it's demeaning to the God believers. Because but
I'm not going to take offense to it.
No, I mean, but you could if you wanted.
I could if I believed you.
There are
might
people
be right. I'd probably be all pissed at you. But
there are people that will be offended by this. But I lost my train of thought there. Damn it.
But will be offended by this.
No, there will be people offended by this. The reason why I have brought this in my own state of mind to a natural state that I can unarguably believe in is because the belief that God only helps those
who help themselves,
who pray, who are always reaching out to him. How many children, and this subject makes me pure mad, are trafficked? How many children are trafficked? He didn't do anything, and God knows that we all know they didn't want it to happen, and they had no control. They were physically overpowered. They had no control. So the only thing that makes me not believe in God is the fact that there isn't one that's actively adjusting things because of people's actions or people's prayers.
Well,
so I chose to believe that God created nature, and the fact that these children are so treated by money-hungry fuckheads is the fact that they just went against nature. That God created nature and created nature to be lived by, and that there are people that are hungry for power, money, whatever that trafficking brings to them, go against nature and injure people. It's the most dishonest way to make money ever thought of or created.
It's the most cruel.
And why is it maddening to everyone that follows the rules of nature? Because it goes against nature.
Well, vengeance. This is how I deal with that aspect, because I hear you and I feel, I've watched people lose loved ones in either tragedies or to cancer, and they blame God, and they, it drives them away from there. And I've watched two that I can think of off the top of my head that, you heard them, just denounce him, and because that couldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that I deal with those kinds of things is vengeance is God's, and our rewards or our punishments is what is the life after this. That is our reward and punishment, is what's to come after this. There is no possible way that men live this life and commit those heinous crimes without there being a punishment. Because that's our hope. But that's my faith too. It's my hope and faith, and I believe it. Unless I live my life to strive to.
That gives me comfort out of my angerness.
And that's how I deal with and control that anger. Because anger is a bad spirit in and of itself. And if we can't find a way to maintain a good spirit, we're going to act out and be wrong too.
I think it's debatable as far as anger being a bad spirit. I think anger is the realization that something has gone wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
And that it's your natural body of just it's like pus.
It's
on a
festering
sore
and coming out.
It's like pus on a sore. Your body sends the pus there to fight that unnatural situation.
But that's why I started
that.
But that's why I started that with vengeance, because vengeance is anger, right? Like it should be. And that's God's. He's the only one that can do it to all the right people, because he's the only one that knows their hearts and minds and knows what they've really done.
Yeah. I want to give a perspective, and this is in no way trying to take it how you want. If you're a victim of your child being trafficked, you have my warmest heart and my most regretful. That's but this is what I look at when there's nothing that boils me worse than the thought of a child being trafficked, let alone if
kidnapped and mistreated, like all this Epstein stuff, and
so I'm gonna tell a little story. So I was up in Seattle, and I've read a lot of stories, and they were true stories about the trafficking and parents that have lost their children just by being overpowered themselves, and then the child being kidnapped. And we're up in Seattle, and we're staying at. I chose the nicest hotel I possibly could, because you don't want to choose a dingy hotel in such a wicked, because there's just a lot of thievery, a lot of homelessness by choice, all of that going on in there. Let alone it's a fucking socialist city, one of the most intense ones in the nation. And I took my wife out on a date, and left Tanea, my daughter, my oldest, with Tammy's sister. And I figured it was normal to not go out on the city with this little 1.5-year-old. I just don't fucking do it. I just figured that would have been common sense. We get back, and she just, my wife's sister just talks like, yeah, they went down to the coastline there, and they walked the boardwalk and that, and I would just have knots in my stomach because that, I mean, there's so many experiences where people are overpowered. Like, she could have easily been overpowered and my child kidnapped. It would have been simple as a knockout.
Or both of them, for that matter, being kidnapped, because I mean,
And
even
so to get to the point and to get to try to add a little perspective to avoid the worst. And by the way, the death of a child is not worse than the kidnapping of a child and trafficked of a child. I would rather the death.
I would concur with that, but I don't want either.
But you just have to think. Don't put yourself in a position that could happen. And the reason why this is important and this perspective is important is I got very upset at Tammy's sister. I says, don't ever do that. Don't ever do that again. And if you wonder if I'm going to approve it or not, just ask me, or you're done. You're no longer our babysitter. If something like this happens again, you're done. And I'm not mad at her for doing it. I'm mad at me for not setting the expectations as a parent.
Or not even.
Because I knew I didn't want it to happen. I just
didn't tell her, don't do it. Yeah.
So my anger to her wasn't necessarily to her. It was to solidify me knowing I need to make my intentions clear and make sure stuff like that is not, we're not put in that position again. Now, going back on how, and the reason why this circles back to nature, and that is you wonder how God allows these children to be trafficked. And simple, I don't think God has anything to do with it. I think it's a decision that was made to either be to put yourself in that situation where your child could be kidnapped, or God forbid, people are actually paid to have children for that very reason, to be. So I think that every child that is trafficked is a result of a bad decision on an adult.
Well, I can't argue that, but I don't think that every child, and this further sets in stone the bad decision of an adult, because if a child is found without parents, unless it's due to tragedy that was not, otherwise preventable, then it was a bad decision that they didn't have parents, or a bad decision that there wasn't two parents by parents, or there's a lot of bad decisions going on in the world. Yeah. And that's why I think all these things are happening.
Yeah.
And my theory on why God allows it to happen, because I do believe he will stop it at some point. I believe that we're in a biblical way almost ripened in iniquity as a nation, that he will, at some point, he will cease to stay his hand and intervene. And you can hope that happens or not. I just believe it's going to happen.
Well, I mean, I'm
not going to
where we're at today. Europe was a couple hundred years ago, and they're still surviving.
Well, and I'm not saying that humanity in existence won't continue, but I mean, you look at the history of different times and ages, and when we grew up with this story being told to us out of the Bible about Sodom and Gomorrah, and God said, find 10 men. Couldn't. Find 9. Couldn't. 8, 7, 6. Couldn't. One man left that was able to talk to God, and his family stayed behind. So I believe that's more or less what we're getting close to or up against.
Yeah, I mean, if you bring biblical into picture as facts, and I do see that.
Well, you have to believe the word. You have to believe that the Bible is in some way, shape, or form some of the directions that we have from a superior being.
The Bible is a very
outline.
Yeah, the Bible is a phenomenal story.
And
whether
the Book
true
of Mormon,
or not,
and the Book of Mormon for that matter,
because
it just continues through to the history of all these generations before that. What was their? How did they recognize God, or was God part of their belief system, or did the existence of a superior being or lack thereof cause that degradation in society? I believe that is what's causing the disbelief in God, is what's causing crime to skyrocket, all this trafficking and some of it's been going on, but it's not been known to us. And then when we know it, then we think, oh, it's happening more. But it is happening more. We see it more and more. Crime in other cities and stuff.
I mean, the belief in God, the flaw of believing in God, in a God or God, is too arguable, and that's why I like my analogy of turning the belief in God to the argument of believing in nature. Is you can't.
It's something you can see. You can't dispute it.
Yeah, you can't dispute it, and I actually believe that the reason why less and less people are believing in God is because it's so disputable.
Yeah, well, blessed is he that believes without seeing.
Well,
and blessed is he that believes when he sees, but
forever,
more blessed is he who believes before.
Forever is good to those that are seen. I just made that up. Hey, we're going to close this out, but I wanted to do a point and tell a little story. So we were in the hot tub the other night, some of my good friends. And by definition, well, we realized that by definition, Elon Musk, if he figures out how to get life on the moon, he is a god by definition.
Well, you and your friends want to do that. That's fun between you guys.
I love it. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for watching this, and I hope it was. If nothing else, it was a perspective, and it, as you could tell, each one of us truly believe how we are and what we're all. Evolution is. I mean, I may believe in the theory of a God. I may in the future. I may need to mature. I may need to get more information, but I'm not there yet. I do like my analogies. And Bert, I don't want to speak for him, but I would assume that he loves his.
Well, I would encourage us all to just try it. Try and pray and just live like there was a God and life after, and see if that
or you could just believe in nature that's provable. Thank y'all.
Thanks, guys.